Successful enterprises know how to exploit all of the data that's available to them. And that's been a big topic here at HP Discover. I've got Lewis Carr with us to talk about that a little bit. Lewis, what is your role at HP?
Well, Andy, I'm glad to be here. My role at HP is to essentially work with our engineers, our field sales, and our marketing organizations to bring together our big data platform to execute on a strategy of providing a single platform that will enable enterprises to do exactly what you were just talking about, exploit 100% of their data.
Do people recognize, do enterprises recognize that the importance of all of the streams that come in, or do they focus on just a couple and ignore potential value?
Well, it's interesting you asked me that question. I think really what it boils down to is they are simply used to looking at certain sets of data just for historical reasons, and because the platforms that were available to them to handle digital data were limited to those data sets. So what do I mean by that? If you really look back to the mainframe days, there was really only one set of data that was truly critical. That was really the data that was used for financial transactions. And we moved into the client-server age, and we added in these large ERP, or enterprise resource planning systems, which, whether it's an HR system or CRM or any of these other acronyms that describe your back office functions, they each have an associated set of data with them. Those were really the two sets of data that we were most focused on.
And you were also focused on not necessarily on a real-time reporting of that information.
Oh, absolutely not. It was really about rear-view mirror. It's really hindsight, right? I have an annual report. I need to gather all the data for that. Maybe a quarterly report, increasingly now monthly reports. So there is this cadence, or the periodicity is shrinking, but at the end of the day, it really is about business analysts, report writers that are collecting data, and not even a complete set of data, but as much as they can, and building things that tell us what we've already done.
So was this a primarily technology problem, or was it a combination of a technology problem and a vision problem?
Somehow it's hard to extricate the two from each other. In other words, if you have a certain set of technology, that's going to help to define what your process looks like. Your process is going, along with the technology, really define what your skill set's going to look like. And so, at some point, the technology and the organizations begin to mirror each other. But with the advent of social media, of machine-to-machine information out there, there's all these new data streams. And it's kind of snuck up on corporations, like, oh my gosh, what do I do with all of this?
Oh, they were used to dealing totally with structured data.
Well, not just structured data, a certain type of structured data, because if you think about it, machine data is certainly structured. If I have data that all of a sudden manifests itself out of a smart meter because I'm a utility company, and all of a sudden I put all these smart meters at homes, I basically put them at first there just to do the transaction of, okay, now I don't need to send out a human being in the field to read this meter. I can get the transactional read of it. But that's just the start. All of a sudden now I've got this piece of data. But if I take the aggregate of all of those smart meters and I say, let me look at the pattern or trend of those meter readings. I don't need to take them just once. I can take them all the time now. So all of a sudden I can say, I look at all these meters and, oh my gosh, there's a certain period where the power is less. Maybe I could trade or reserve energy and sell it instead. So all of a sudden a new business model comes out.
But then you also have the opportunity to normalize that data vis-a-vis the weather conditions that are occurring at the same time.
That's the point. So big data isn't about a single set of data. It's like I've got all these new data sets. I can correlate them, fuse it together, really find out cool new things. That's what the possibility of big data really means.
And not only is it changing, it's changing at an accelerated pace.
Yes,
your ability
absolutely.
to measure it then leads to a better understanding, which leads you to measure it more closely.
Right. Right, and the fact that there are just more opportunities to measure new data sets that simply didn't exist before, whether it's a smart meter or it's all of the sensors in your car. So for example, I am the proud owner of a plug-in hybrid Ford Fusion, and I've had it for 10,000 miles, and about every 2,000 miles, this car actually dials up through my cell phone and provides a report. So before, Ford would have never thought about what can I do with this data. But now there's all these intelligent processors in this car that are a wealth of information that Ford can use to do a better job of predicting when maybe maintenance needs to be done, building a better relationship with me, even though I don't want anything to do with the used car salesman or anything like that.
And it's interesting to see that the business impact of General Electric monitoring jet engines in tremendous detail, it's very high price piece of capital equipment. But then when you consider millions of Ford owners delivering data,
that's right.
The financial impact can be just as large to Ford as it was to GE.
Absolutely, absolutely. And GE is on the forefront of this area. They're really one of the companies that coined the whole term, the Internet of Things. And it's almost as if, if you take what Martin Fink was talking about yesterday, we are at the precipice of just a huge wealth of information that extends from every corner of the periphery of the network, and you're going to have much more power flowing through that system to handle making any use of that.
So you've got to capture it, you've got to index it, and then you've got to analyze and be able to understand what this data potentially can tell you.
Yeah, and it's not it is a sequential process. At least you want to start by figuring out what data you have. And so the idea of surveying, of categorizing, of building an index and a taxonomy is a first step. But once you've done that, because there's always going to be new data sets, and because of even sometimes compliance and regulatory constraints, it will be something you have to do periodically. Because you do not want to end up with a situation where the data is controlling you.
Right. Well, it sounds like this is the ideal situation to combine a number of product offerings, and I guess that's one way of looking at Haven then.
Haven is a evolution of going from best in class for products like autonomy that handle human information, so voice, video, text. And I don't just mean text as in a single type of file, but I mean taking all the files that might be associated with a knowledge worker that are scattered across your laptop, across the SharePoints, enterprise content management.
Transcripts of video, for
Transcripts
example.
of videos, and I would want to be able to store those transcripts, understand the meaning of them, see them in context. I simply can't use some sort of structured query on it using the types of tools that would be used typically for structured data. So autonomy really takes us into a whole new area around looking at unstructured data. Vertica, another piece of our platform, maybe I should step back. So for those of you in the audience that are listening to this, we actually have built a platform that you can remember simply by the acronym. So it's called Haven. The H is for Hadoop. The A is for autonomy. The V is for Vertica. The E is a little trickier. It's for enterprise security.
Yes.
But we actually have a best-in-class product that's featured on that E, which is called ArcSight.
ArcSight, yes.
And the idea is that you take each of these engines, the H for Hadoop of bringing in all sorts of data from both existing structured repositories as well as existing unstructured, but also these new data streams that may not have been in any repository before. They may have been simply thrown away. That smart meter we talked about earlier, it's replacing a one-shot reading. So at first somebody probably thought, oh, why do I need to store this? Now I can figure out some value of it, I'm probably going to store it. So, you basically have to bring all the data in. Well, that's what Hadoop's about. Autonomy is about, again, taking that unstructured data. Vertica is about taking all the structured data, but not just taking the data and analyzing it in batch mode, but being able to analyze it in real time, large quantities of it. And then there are certain types of machine data where you really want to have an engine and a correlation analytics function above that engine that's very specialized, and security is one of those places.
Okay, so
for that reason, that's exactly why we
comes in.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of information that is already being captured by systems, that's put in log files, but it's never really human readable because you don't know of its existence because there's just so many, the sheer volume of files.
Which even if it is human readable, a human's not going to have the time in their lifespan to read
searchable.
it. Yeah,
exactly. So the part I think is kind of interesting is the N, which is for N number of apps, N number of connectors.
Yes.
Now the connector is when you can bring in a specific piece of data, structured or unstructured, correct?
Well, and it's very important for speed of bringing together data sets so that you can do some sort of exploratory analytics on them, that you have out-of-the-box connectors, and as many as possible. And that's one reason we started with autonomy as one of the engines, not just because it does unstructured, and it will handle pulling in structured data, by the way. It's just the area where it excels, where we actually have patents, over 170 of them, is around unstructured data, so doing things like facial recognition, etc. But the point is, you want to be able to connect into all these existing repositories ASAP, as fast as possible. So we've got over 400 with autonomy. We've got over 350 with ArcSight. And with Vertica, it's a little different. It has obviously the standard connectors to get to traditional databases, so you can offload from those to do high-speed query. But in addition to that, you can take any of the existing off-the-shelf tools that are used for data integration and mapping of data from various schemas associated with a database directly into Vertica.
What special challenge does social media present, extracting sentiment and so forth? What makes it difficult?
What makes it difficult is you really cannot use just a standard structured query, because you need to look at the context of words around a particular word to understand if you actually have a positive or a negative sentiment. Somebody could say this is bad. Mm-hmm. Well, does that mean it's bad as in it's no good, you don't like it, or this is bad as in it's bad, you can put the word after it? But the point is, how do I understand when it's a positive or a negative sentiment?
Right.
And how do I do that across a large set of social media feeds, right? Doing that is not easy, or has not been easy in the past, but with the tools that we have now, we are helping customers, particularly in the retail space, but also customers that are retail facing that we don't normally think of as retail. So yes, we have the obvious customers like a Guess, for example, but we also have customers in banking. We have customers that essentially are trying to even look at the sentiment of their employees, so trying to understand voice of their workforce.
Right.
So yeah, that's very important to be able to leverage social media. It's interesting because social media, people will say things and be brutally honest that they will never say directly to you under the old style of communication.
Exactly. Well, a fascinating view of ways to extract value from all the data that's surrounding us. Where can people go for more information on HP's thought and progress and products?
It's real simple. Just go to hp.com/Haven, Haven, and you're there.
Excellent. Well, Louis, thanks very much for joining us here today on the final day of HP Discover. Stay with us. We'll be continuing our coverage, several more interviews yet here this morning from Las Vegas.
Live streaming of SDR news coverage at HP Discover has been made possible by Intel Corporation. Check out Intel OpenPort IT, where you can connect with your peers at Intel on industry topics, best practices, strategies, and more. And by Microsoft, where HP and Microsoft are working together, combining their respective strengths to deliver innovative technologies to help advance your business.